Hello and welcome to Pro Striking. In this video we're going to be watching Tim Wilde do a one-to-one at Tiger Muay Thai with boxing coach Alexis. Now Alexis is a Russian coach. I believe he's fought before, but because we don't speak Russian and he doesn't speak a whole lot of English, I'm not too sure on his background, to be honest, but he seemed like a very good coach. We all trained on a couple of his classes from the get-go, the public classes at Tiger Muay Thai. And we liked his style, particularly for Tim, who's an MMA fighter signed to Balltor, who uses a lot of footwork in his game. And Alexis's session was heavily revolved around footwork, creating angles, and a lot of head movement as well. So I really enjoyed the session with him, and I'd recommend anyone to book in. So the PT with Tim, we started off with ladder drills, and this went on for quite a while. But Alexis didn't use the ladder for just a warm-up, like many coaches, even myself, would do. Alexis used the ladder to practice some footwork drills that were going to be necessary for the session. So one of the things that he kept adjusting Tim with was the height when he was punching and telling him not to lean too far forward on his shots. Something you'll notice about Alexis even, I think it's Alexis, is he's very well balanced when he moves. He moves so well and he's so well coordinated. And I think that goes with a lot of the Russian fighters. And he was really picking up on Tim's posture and his balance. He wants his fighter always to be on balance. So with this technique now, he's looking at the right hand and he's telling Tim to keep his back a bit straighter and not to lean. So his head is going to be on the center line, but on balance, off the center line, sorry. So he wants it slightly off the center line, but he wants Tim to remain on balance with it. The small details like this that you want any kind of coach to pick up on. So Tim he's a great fighter, and Alexis was very critical at times and made Tim feel like a bit of a beginner. Something with the Russian coaches, they can be a little bit impatient, but Alexis is a nice guy. He's got nice energy. He's polite as well. So yeah, I think he's a good dude. So in this ladder, we went over some various drills, and he's talking about here like winding up on the shot and how you want to use the footwork to generate momentum into a punch. So transferring the weight from side to side, which is like a very common theme in all striking sports, is that transference of weight. You watch Alexis move, he's so fluent with his footwork and his hand-eye coordination. He just moves everything together so seamlessly. So when he was doing it, it obviously looked really smooth. When Tim was doing it, it's the first time he's ever done it. And I thought Tim did a pretty good job, considering he'd never practiced any of these drills before. But I've really liked them, and I'm going to be using them a lot when I get back to coaching myself with my students, because I feel like there were some very beneficial footwork drills that the boys went over in this session. Something that Alexis went over a lot in his class was moving forwards and backwards, and using the two things to obviously close the distance if your opponent's retreating, but also how to retreat correctly after you've landed your shot and get back to a safe range. He was very forwards and backwards, which I think goes really well for MMA, because MMA is always an opponent retreating, usually in fear of the takedown. So a lot of guys are forward and backward type of fighters. You don't see as much at the minute guys cutting off at an angle, which is something like guys like TJ Dillashaw were incorporating in like the last few years. So it's picking up a bit and people are doing it, but it is very much forwards and backwards, and you've got to cover that ground in order to get your opponent. Guys will literally sprint away in MMA because the distance is bigger. They don't stand as close in MMA as what they would do in Thai boxing or boxing, so it's a lot harder to land a strike. So I really thought it was beneficial for Alexis to be going over a lot of these things. And then he started introducing the element of kick reaction, as well as thinking about, you can get taken down. So he was really encouraging Tim throughout the session to not stay static. He wanted him kind of moving all the time and staying reactive. He wanted Tim to always be very reactive with what he was doing. Oh, so here we can see Alexis telling Tim on his left hand to use it to turn more and generate a lot more power into the right hand. So again, you get that transference of weight. He described it as like throwing a hammer, or hammer throw, I think, and the way he was winding up the shot. I don't know if that's a great analogy, but I understood what he meant. So yeah, that's another thing that Alexis was doing, which is cool for Tim because he does actually fight in both stances. But he was going a lot of southpaw and orthodox. So all the ladder drills, he made Tim do it orthodox, which is obviously left foot in front, which is easier for him because that's his natural stance. But then he would make him do it as a southpaw, which obviously adds a much more tricky element to the drill. But I mean, again, if you did this type of stuff for 6 months, I believe it would really help with your footwork. And then become like, well, for Alexis now, he's so well schooled that it would just be a warm up for him. Whereas for Tim now, it was all kind of like new footwork patterns and new stuff to digest and take in. So I feel like it was beneficial for him as an athlete, really, and help him with his coordination. So he was just kind of a basic stepping drill, stepping on every punch and making sure that you're staying on balance as you do it, staying in your fighting stance. And again, that was like a heavy emphasis on all of Alexis's drills. Again, I think he's telling Tim here, when you change your level, don't overlean, don't lean forward too much, and stay on balance with your strike. And he wants him to turn his shots through, so really turn his torso on it and turn his hip through. If you watch Alexis's right leg, it's very active when he steps through on the right hand, and he really pulls that right hip all the way through on the punch, so he gets the full follow through on the shot. Tim sometimes can be a little bit stiff with what he's doing, but at the same time he hits really hard. Like, Tim is a big puncher for lightweight. He might not have the knockouts yet. I mean, he has got some in his career, but I think there's more on the way because he hits really hard, and I think some of that comes down to him punching quite stiff at times. It's like quite jarring on the pads when you pad for Tim. So this one's just like a general coordination drill, side to side, and then Alexis will put some punches in, and this is tricky as hell if you've never done it before. Like, I struggled with this in the class because another thing with these coaches is sometimes they can move through things very quickly. So like he didn't it's basically learn fast or go home. That's kind of the motto of these coaches. But you'll take something away. If you don't get one drill, there'll be one drill that you'll take away with you. So I feel he don't want to stick on something for too long, especially if it's like just a footwork drill on the ladder. It's probably not worth spending half an hour perfecting it. You just move through pretty quick. Here he's telling Tim off for what he called it a dragon punch, because Tim wasn't turning his hands over, so he was having his thumb straight up. Tim's obviously funny with it, and just said, yeah, okay, I'll turn the hand over. His karate background, or karate, as Tim from the Black Country in Wolverhampton would say. Look at that, though. Look at his speed there. He's nice, Tim. Now, this one was really tricky, but I like it. Like, again, this switching stance with the punches, it requires like rhythm and coordination, things that are very important in any combat sport. Yeah, Tim's getting it there. He's got that white boy, funky footwork. Nice, Tim. So Alexis, not happy with that one. He's like, right, let's make it even more difficult in a minute, because you've done that a bit too easy. So I said, he moved the goalpost. Let's make it harder. Let's make it harder, Tim. So I think he said it was an uppercut, a hook, and a cross, and you change foot position with every punch. So you're just changing stance constantly whilst throwing the opposite punch. And I'm glad I wasn't the one doing this one, because oh, Tim's got it.
You've done that a lot, Alexis. You have practiced.
Yeah, he's doing a good job there, really. Considering he's never done it before either, but at the same time, he's a high-paid
Yeah.
Bellator athlete, so he's a professional fighter, fighting full-time, so I'd hope that he could get
No rhythm.
these drills, really, and I think Alexis was thinking the same.
White boy Timmy.
I think Alexis even mugged him off at one point and said, like, you never boxed before. And Tim's like, mate, I'm an MMA fighter. Can you do a spinning hook kick, Alexis? Can you do a rear naked choke? He's like, I've got to learn a lot more than just boxing. Well, I think it's just that Russian attitude. They're just like, no bullshit. I kind of like it.
He moved the goalpost.
Yeah, he's got it. So like Tiger Muay Thai as a gym, it's freaking huge. And if you've ever been to Thailand, they've just got these like purpose-made facilities that are like any athlete's dream. So Tiger's essentially like 4 gyms in one. It's got like an MMA area up the top with a weights gym. It's got a full like strength and condition area. So this is the strength and condition area we're in now. We're not even in like the boxing bit. Then they've got multiple rings kind of towards the front of the gym. And then they've got their own like restaurant and grill bar. So yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous and must have cost a fortune. So Alexis now moving on to the noodles and again focusing on Tim, moving his head, but he wants him to be, again, moving all the time. So not just stationary and being reactive. Like Alexis is big on being reactive and treating everything like it's a fight. You know, it's not just like a choreographed drill. So on the class, when we were training the general class for the public, he was doing a lot of drills that I personally use myself with my own students on classes, which is like live sparring specific drills. So let's say they worked on slipping a jab. You don't just do it on the spot. You practice it on the spot initially, and then you'll move on to practicing it as if it's a spar. So you don't know when your partner's going to jab, and you've got to be reactive to it. You've got to try and slip it or defend it in like a live sparring situation. And that was like a big theme of Alexis' training in class. So now he was just telling Tim off about his lean back and leaning in on his right hand as well. But he was saying that like when you lean back, don't have your shoulders square. Lean back like it's boxing. He was saying it's not Muay Thai. Keep that left shoulder forward. Don't square your shoulders up when you pull back. And then he was just saying stay on balance with your step back as well. So the noodles, I guess they are just like, it's a way of the pad man kind of like saving his arms, so he's not just holding pads, getting hit for the whole session. You know, I get that, because holding pads all day does hurt your arms, it really does. So the noodles are a nice kind of like way for the pad man to not take any damage, but Alexis is using them pretty well, like for speed and, again, just keeping Tim reactive. But it wasn't anything like to write home about, so we'll move on to the paddle work now. So again, like I said, the paddles, similarly to the noodles, are for the pad man to not be absorbing massive amounts of damage in his elbows and joints. So Alexis is using paddles instead of like boxing mitts. And he's just again telling Tim about changing his levels and keeping his chin tucked on the jab to the body. I think he said now as well, when you jump into your shot, he was like, don't jump in the air upwards. He was like, go forward with it. So when you go forward with it, you'll generate more power in your shot and you'll be more balanced rather than like jumping straight up and over. You know what I mean? So he was saying kind of like, not like a hop jump, but like a jump forward and down into the ground. So if you notice Tim now, he's kind of coming down with the step through, which I think was quite an interesting detail. I've never really seen a coach pick up on that before. Nice. So that was the nice overhand Alexis again. What I like about his right hand is he likes the elbow high and out to the side, so it's like arcing over on the straight shot, and I feel like you generate a lot of power with it. I actually like punching like that, and you're much less likely to injure your elbow with an overextension. Sorry if you can hear motorbikes in the background. I'm in a hotel in Phuket now, and If you've ever been to Phuket before, it is literally scooter and motorbike heaven. Yeah, see Tim there doubling up on the jab. And then he was saying about turning that into a left hook. So Tim's got a bit of a stiff left hook. He's not really a hook kind of guy. I think that's from the karate background. He's very much like straight down the middle with all his shots. So Alexis was just kind of saying slap the punch in and use your shoulder. Don't just arm punch it and don't be stiff with it. So he actually got Tim to just slap the pad at one point in order to try and like develop that feel, which I thought was quite interesting and cool. Yeah, he's getting him to slap the pad now. Nate Diaz style, stop and slap. But I think Tim's still pulling that a bit too far around. There, that was nice. So now using that right hand to come back and protect yourself on your left side. So if you overcommit too much on the left hook and come too far around, you're exposing yourself to the opponent's right hand as a counter. So I'm a big fan of like retracting it back. So when you throw the left hook, you turn your shoulder back with your torso, bringing your left hand back in front of your chin. And Alexis is saying, you kind of slap that hook in just to set the right hand up, just to line it up. And drop your head off a line as you do it. But again, keeping on balance and keeping on posture. It's the best thing you could take away from this session is that everything's about balance. When you see Alexis moving the way he does things, that is something that is not lacking. He's a very coordinated little man. Getting Tim to step on every shot. I think I want to get myself some paddles. They look a lot easier to hold than the hand mitts. My hand mitts are pretty good, to be fair. I've got some rival ones which are great for like the MMA boys because you can kind of elbow them because they're quite soft. But the paddles definitely are going to save your elbows and probably give you a bit of longevity as a pad man. When this is your job and you're doing it all day, you get a lot of wear and tear on the body. Whereas I think you need little tools like noodles and paddles to mix it up a bit. Oh, that was lovely. I see how that elbow was high on the right hand there. And Alexis just reminded him, stay active, stay mobile, stay ready. Okay, now this drill I really liked was about changing the stance as an exit. And it's something I've gone over with all my boys frequently. So Tim's dropping back, southpaw, orthodox, to cut angle and get himself off a line and create space more than anything. So Alexis is trying to tell him now to angle off in the opposite stance. Yeah, nice. And cut off to the side with it. So rather than going in a straight line, you cut off to the side. So when Tim's southpaw, he'll be dropping his right leg back. No, he'll be dropping his left leg back behind him and then angling off in that direction towards his left. He's showing the 1, 2, 3 angle back. And then he switches this up into a nice like counter lead hand hook in a minute, which is really cool. Yeah, he's just mocking Tim a bit there, saying he was too hunched up. He was just saying, leave that shoulder forward, don't curl up into a ball too much. He wants you ready to be able to punch. So staying in like a fighting stance as you're moving rather than going too defensive with it. And then he was also saying you can use your frame to keep distance and a frame with a lead arm. So whichever hand is in front, if you go southpaw, that'll be your right hand. If you're orthodox, it'll be your left hand. You post that out in front of you to keep the distance from your opponent if they're rushing you and trying to put that pressure on you. Yeah, just like that. Tim had his right hand out extended. Oh, lovely. So now he's turning that into the lead hook. Yeah, I like that. You generate a lot of power with these strikes when you transfer the weight like this. But yeah, that was cool. This is a drill I'm definitely going to be practicing more with Tim because Tim's very good at switching stance. We've been doing something to help with his movement and avoid takedowns as well. Because if you stand straight up in front of the opponent in stance, then the opponent's got a read on your hips. and it's easier for them to shoot an entry. And obviously Tim's a predominant striker, so he's trying to look to anti-grapple. In fact, an interesting fact about Tim is that he's never shot a takedown in his whole MMA career. So he's he's 0 for 0 in takedown attempts. But by getting offline this way, it makes it really hard for the opponent to shoot a double. It's not only you creating more space from them, but you're changing the look, so it's not the same entry anymore. So I think this is a really good move, particularly for MMA. So as much as Alexis is a boxer, he seems to have like a good understanding of combat sports as a whole. He's obviously spent some time at Tiger. I'm not sure on his whole background, but as I said earlier, he was talking about incorporating the kicks and incorporating the takedowns and telling Tim to remain active defensively for all, like be ready to expect that. So every now and again he'd throw a little kick at Tim, yeah, like that. Tell him to little step back, little move back, just stay on his toes. Oh, I like that. I like that very much. Like something that Alexis said at the end, I just kind of picked his brain a bit after the session. And he was a big believer in saying the boxing wasn't just for boxing or for punching, but it transferred to all combat sports because it's about distance, understanding the distance. So a lot of his drills were footwork based, and being able to read an opponent, use your eyes. That's kind of what he was saying all the time. Like, use your eyes and stay ready to defend, stay ready to counter. And I feel like if you just kept doing that, that's like the core principle of the session, and that applies to all combat sports. So just keeping you in a suspended alertness, if that makes sense. That probably didn't even make sense. Exit there, nice. So a southpaw lead hook, so he drifts back into a southpaw right hook and into a left straight.
That was really good. I really like that drill. Yeah, and you carve some feet.
No, I said I just think like a robot.
You're busy boxing, yeah?
More,
So the music was really loud, so in order to not get kicked off of YouTube, I'm gonna have to probably lower down the sound a little bit. And if you can't understand what they're saying, I do apologize. Copyright infringement, man. See, that was what he was just saying then about the using your eyes to measure the distance, and then he was just kind of simulating like a takedown entry or a kick coming your way. So he's just saying, if you've got the distance, if you understand the distance, then you're good. You can see everything, and then you can react accordingly. So I think this round was the round where they incorporated some roundhouse kicks, which I think threw Tim off a little bit. We'd also been training a lot at Simbi Gym, which is like a very traditional Muay Thai gym. So the pad work style is a bit different. I prefer the Muay Thai style of pad work 'cause it's just fun. And the pad men are a lot of fun, but this is definitely going to be like really beneficial for Tim as an MMA fighter. Because sometimes Thai boxing can be a little bit too static. And another reason I'd mention that is because Tim's legs were absolutely smashed. Like his calves in the first few days were hammered. And then to be doing like loads of footwork after doing sessions of just like non-stop roundhouse kicks is not easy. And Tim ain't a young man anymore. He's 35. So yeah, these sessions add up. So I think now they're going to start that drift backwards, and then Alexis wanted to turn that into a lead high kick there, and then lift that lead leg up, which is quite a tricky technique. I mean, Tim's from a karate background though, so he's got quite good dexterity with the legs. but it's still a bit of an awkward one, but very effective. Like if you watch Wonder Boy, he has a few highlight reel knockouts with that lead high kick. He catches people by surprise because the distance is off, it's close, and they often don't see it. And especially if you blinded them with the hook first, you can definitely catch an opponent by surprise. So I think this is another one I will be practicing with Tim, because I think for him and his style, it's going to be a good one, worth investing some time into. And at the end of the day, with all these sessions, especially when you go from trainer to trainer, you know, Tim's got a style. He is who he is. He's not going to be able to become a Russian-style boxer in 1, 2, or 3 sessions or whatever it is, even 50 sessions. It's going to take like years. Like Alexis has done this for years. So what you have to do then as the athlete is pick and choose what works for you and your style. But to go to any of you beginners, you have to have a style first. So if you've only been training for 6 months or a year or even 2 years, you probably don't have a proper style yet. You haven't explored all the elements enough to know who you are. So you have to experiment with them all and learn them all. And then it's once you've spent that like 2 to 3 years learning the foundations and learning those fundamentals, then you can start tweaking and adding things. And Tim's been in the game now, you know, as a 35-year-old man, he's been in martial arts for like 20 years. So, you know, he knows who he is. So even though a lot of this stuff is new, to him, there were things that complement to his style and we can add to his style. Oh, I like that. Into the lead hook high kick. So again, he was talking about like transferring the weight into the shot and getting that like loose connection, not being too stiff with it. Yeah, nice. Transferring that weight over and getting that whip in the shot. So, coming to the end of the session now, that is going to be it. That is the Alexis boxing 1-to-1 at Tiger Muay Thai. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe. And if you'd like more stuff like this, let me know in the comments, because yeah.
What's the final thoughts on that? You're a robot.
I'm stiff. I'm old. But I'm dangerous.
He snaked you.
You snake me?
He's a cunt.
He's a cunt? Trying to get extra work? I see that. Trying to get extra work? I see it.